Well, as we begin the sermon, I want to ask you, if you're able, would you please stand? Now, I invite you to turn around for a moment. Look around. Now turn back around. Now, besides being an unusual way to start the sermon, how did you find that experience? Annoying? Were you ready for the sermon to begin? Why aren't we getting on with the sermon? Did you have a new perspective? Did you notice something you might not have noticed otherwise? Did you like looking the other direction better and wish you could turn the pew around for the rest of the service? When you turn around, it can be a very powerful experience. And that's what I want us to focus on this morning, on this Sunday before Thanksgiving, the power of turning around. You may be seated. Let us pray. Lord, remind us that the heart of the spiritual life hinges on our willingness to turn around and go in a direction that leads to you. Help us consider any way you invite us to do that today. In Christ's name, amen. I want us to think about one of the greatest outbursts of thanksgiving in the Bible that happened because of somebody who turned around. A group of lepers one day approached Jesus. We're told that they were 10 in number. Leprosy then as now was a dreaded disease, except then it was like a death sentence, at least socially and spiritually. John Ortberg, in his book, Love Beyond Reason, explains how leprosy might begin as an aching in the joints and a feeling of lethargy, about like getting the flu. But then discolored patches of skin would appear that quickly became ulcerated sores and open wounds, and before long you would lose feeling in the extremities. To make matters worse, it was believed that leprosy was highly contagious, so in that time, lepers were separated from community. They were forced to be on their own or among themselves only. In the Torah, we read, those who suffer from a serious skin disease must tear their clothing and leave their hair uncombed. They must cover their mouth and call out, unclean, unclean, as long as the serious disease lasts. They will be ceremonially unclean. They must live in isolation in their place outside the camp. No wonder these 10 lepers who approached Jesus stopped at a distance and screamed, Jesus, Master, have mercy on us. They had to practice social distancing. They were doing it long before COVID ever came along. Now, what's interesting is that Jesus doesn't touch them as he did in other healings. He doesn't say words like, be healed. He says to them, go show yourselves to the priest. Why would he do that? Because if you've been healed, the only way you can re-enter society is with the approval of a priest who declares you clean. That's the only way. In other words, Jesus was telling these 10 sick people to go act like you've been healed. And it says, as they went, they were healed. Oh, what a great sermon that is. What a great sermon that you experience miracles as you obey. But I've actually preached that sermon before, and I'm sure you remember it. So what I want us to pay attention to this morning is the next part of the story. One of them, when he realized that he was healed, turned around and came back shouting his gratitude, glorifying God, and he was a Samaritan. This one realized something supernatural had happened to him, that he had been in the presence of a miracle worker, one who had to be God. And in claiming that moment, And turning around and recognizing it, pausing in that moment, he received an even deeper blessing. Jesus said to him, "Go your way, your faith has saved you." The word salvation in the New Testament means wholeness. That's what it means. It means to be made whole, body, soul, mind. He had already experienced physical wholeness, but now he got a deeper blessing. He knew he was in the source of one who could make his life whole in every respect. What we see in this story is when you experience a moment that makes you think, I wonder if God is in this, and you pause and you turn around, you open yourself to receive an even greater blessing. I had that experience this week. I'd conducted a funeral in here on Monday. At the end of the funeral, I led the family and all of the attendants down the hallway, down the West Passage to the Great Hall, where Chef Joseph and his volunteers and Dinah had prepared a wonderful lunch for them. But they said, it will help if we can get everybody in the room and say a blessing first. Then as people are ready, they can get up and eat. So as the pastor by the door, I kind of turned quickly into pastor herder. So I could herd people into the room because they were stopping to greet the family, and I knew they wanted a chance for everybody to get in the room. So I said, if you all will just keep moving, come on in. We're going to have a blessing first. Please keep moving. I was herding them into the room. A woman came up to me, an older woman, introduced herself. She said she had actually published a couple of books with poetry in them. And she then said to me, "Would you like a poem?" I said, well, sure. She closed her eyes and began to recite. And this poem was not like Mary Had a Little Lamb. I mean, it went on for a little bit. And I'm still needing to herd people and look respectful, and I'm nodding my head. Her eyes are closed. I mean, she's just reciting the poem. People come up wanting to talk, and they realize, wait, something's going on here. I want to just go be seated. Yeah, please. She finished, and she opened her eyes and said, "Would you like another?" I said, "No." That's okay. I tell you what, let's get everybody seated. Let's start the lunch. So we did that. We got the meal going. It was 15 minutes or more later, and I was out in the hallway. The line for the meal stretched into the hall, and I noticed this woman was at the back of the line, and something told me, turn around. And I went up and I said, I would love to hear that poem, that other one you were going to share. I said, but let's get away from people. Let's go sit over here by ourselves. We went over, we sat down. She handed me the book of her poems, and then she started to recite the next one. This time I listened. It's deeply moving, and it was very spiritual. When she finished, I started flipping through the book, and I said, all of these are yours, aren't they? She said, they are. I said, they're deeply spiritual. She said, they are. It's because I know that God is with me. Last month, I was given a diagnosis of Alzheimer's. I know I won't be able to do this for much longer, but I'm okay. I said, what makes you okay? She said, when I was 14 years old, I was in the church on Holy Thursday, the Thursday that commemorates the Last Supper. She said, I was Catholic then, and people were draping the statues of the saints, which is a Catholic tradition in some places. She said, but suddenly I became aware of all of these other people moving into the sanctuary. I didn't understand why the workers didn't see these people. And then I realized they don't. I'm the only one who sees it. And then all of a sudden, I heard the most amazing music I have ever heard in my life. And I knew God was telling me, I am with you. You're okay. So I know I'm going to be okay. I said, you've been going back to that place you had as a 14-year-old girl all your life, haven't you? She said, yes. I'm so glad I turned around. I believe God gives you and me reasons every day, and sometimes multiple times a day, to turn around. If we will just slow down. It would have been easy for me to be like the other 9 lepers in the story. who just busily went about what I had to do next. I mean, after all, these lepers were obeying Jesus after all. Jesus asked, why didn't they turn around? Well, they're doing what you told them to do. Go show yourselves to the priest. I feel like most days I don't have time to turn around, Jesus, because I'm busy doing what you told me to do. But when I do, even in the busyness, I realize God is usually showing up to give me something more than what I see in the passing. Turn around. Something else about this leper who turned around to face Jesus. He wasn't just turning around to face Jesus, he was turning away from limited possibility. We're told he was a Samaritan. Now think about this for a moment. In Judea, that was like having two strikes against you. You're a leper, you're already a social outcast, but you're also a Samaritan. You are Jewish by faith, but you are considered by Judean Jews to be of impure race. Why would he be in a hurry to go to a Judean priest to tell him he's clean? He still cannot enter into society fully. He cannot have that changed about his life. He could go so far in the temple, but no more. He still faced many people who would never want to touch him or come near him. Isn't it interesting how religion contributes to that division? So he turns away from a limited possibility in the direction of a reason to give thanks. Oh, what does that look like? On the first day of this month, the Dodgers won the World Series. I'm a Reds fan. I really can't stand that fact. But before one of the games, the television network did a feature story about the most popular member of the Dodgers team, and he's not a player. Take a look at the story.
RJ's journey, has had some super high highs and some really low lows, but at the end of the day, it's been a beautiful ride.
Every player has like their own cubbyhole and everything, so some players like to have their bats in a certain spot.
RJ Pete brings joy to me, to the clubhouse. He's family.
Rodney and Holly Robinson Pete always refer to their oldest son, Rodney, as RJ. At just 3 years old, RJ was diagnosed with autism. His parents still refer to it as the Never Day.
Oh boy, the Never Day. The Never Day was a laundry list of things that RJ would never do. He would never say, I love you.
He would never drive. He would never have friends. He would never go to mainstream schools. He would never live on his own. He would never have real employment.
It still makes me really sad. It still makes me really emotional that we were given no hope for RJ.
As the family needed to accept and then advocate for their son, RJ's search for inclusion and understanding was a challenge.
He wanted friendship, and he didn't have any friends. And he just wanted to be accepted. He just wanted to be loved.
RJ would find that love at the ballpark.
How you doing?
When he was 18 and done with school, a family friend with the Dodgers invited him to come to the stadium to meet
I'll open it right
about
here.
a job.
We knew it was a right thing to do to give him an opportunity. RJ is well suited to do many, many things. So I called Holly and said, we're gonna hire him. Just bring him here, we're gonna find him a job.
That was a decade ago.
The funnest job is being here with all the players. It'll get more fun when we get to the playoffs.
Yeah.
15 years after his family was told all the things he'd never do, R.J. Pete started as a clubhouse attendant for the Dodgers.
All right.
He's been thriving ever since.
It's collecting uniforms, passing out uniforms, setting up the dugout, cleaning spikes, doing laundry, passing out laundry.
So we clean the helmets like this, we put scrubbing bubbles on, and we got to make sure we check all the LA logos, make sure they're not peeling off.
He's got such an infectious personality. He's like happy every day, which is something that a lot of us envy. He comes in with a positive attitude and is always smiling.
Whatever they need, you know, that's what we're here for, you know? Yeah, just put a smile and that's it, you know?
Man, RJ.
RJ. RJ. He's an unbelievable human being.
Every day I see him, it's like I hadn't seen him in 10 years. He's just there for you, whatever you need.
I don't start any of my days during a home game without a hug from RJ. He knows everyone's birthdays. Doc asked him, how do you do this? And he said, well, the way it works is they tell me their birthday and I remember it. And that was all he said. That's RJ.
Whose birthday is it today?
Happy birthday, RJ! That's mine. 2-8. I feel old. You know, I'm trying to still think I'm young. You're not.
For his work and contributions in the clubhouse, the Dodgers have presented RJ, now 28, with his own World Series ring. Twice now. Belonging, acceptance, purpose. For R.J. Pete, the Dodgers are much more than a team.
He's family. We've been much more of beneficiaries with RJ in the clubhouse than we have benefited him.
I've never seen a group of guys lift up a person so much.
Other family, yeah. Yeah, we're all family. We all joke around. We mess around with each other a lot, you know? That's what we do. That's what we do around here.
Isn't that a great story? Great story. Have you ever had a never day? Have you ever had a day when the voices flooded your head with who you cannot be or become? Have the voices ever been your own? Have the voices ever been yours, telling you what somebody else cannot do, what they will not become, how a situation is never going to get better? When that happens, you have to turn around and in the direction of praise. A colleague of mine told me about a couple in his church the other day. They found out that their child has Down syndrome. And when they were receiving this news, immediately the voices started to fill their heads of the challenges, the hardships, what this is going to mean. A nurse could tell that they were doing this and said, "Can we walk to the side for a minute?" The nurse said, "Can I share some statistics with you? 99% of people with Down syndrome are happy with their lives. 97% like who they are. 96% like how they look. 97% like their brothers and sisters. 86% feel they can make friends easily." She said to them, "Our world needs more people with Down syndrome." What she meant by that, of course, is our world needs more people who face life and the people in life like people with Down syndrome. What was that nurse doing? She was inviting them to turn around in the direction of praise. Is that a helpful word for you today? Are you facing some nevers in your life? Are you facing fears that are causing you to go to the worst possibility of what they could become? Turn around and give praise. One last thought about this Samaritan. This unidentified, nameless person, other than by his race, a Samaritan, is that he turned around to see his own hardship differently. Now, I imagine all 10 of those lepers who were healed came to see aspects of their lives that up until that time they probably took for granted, but now they never would again. They would never take for granted the gift of being able to sit in your own home with a family at a meal table. They would never take for granted the ability to hug your spouse or your children or your grandchildren or together with other people in public community in a worship service. They would probably look on all of those things with newfound appreciation. But I wonder something else for this Samaritan. And now it's not something in the story. I'm wondering how this Samaritan who discovered the one who could make life whole looked back on that experience as an old man. Looking back on that moment, not just as a singular, isolated event that gave him healing at that time, but I wonder if it had an impact on his journey long after, as he looked at future times when he would face hardship. And what I wonder is if he began to see that one event in a much wider scope. As he learned about who Jesus is, and why Jesus just so happened to be there that day. And if he looked at his own life and the people that he went on to influence and touch because he could, and then what maybe became of their lives, and what went on, that he began to thread together a story of thanksgiving that was much bigger than one blessing. Every blessing has that. Every blessing is tied to bigger reasons to give thanks. And if we look for it, we begin to understand that all paths lead to praise eventually. This could be a good exercise going into Thanksgiving week, to do what I would call drawing a Thanksgiving map. I learned this from an article by Melissa Kirch, who talked about a new way that she has to mark Thanksgiving. She said, but I'm reluctant to share it because I don't want it to sound cliche like so many people who say, well, count your many blessings. She goes, this is a little bit different. She talks about looking at one individual blessing and then beginning to think about how that blessing came into her life and other blessings attached to it. In fact, in the article, she relates it to a little gift on her table in which she takes a deck from what are called wisdom cards. They're sort of like good thoughts for the day. I will think of something small, say this weird little deck of wisdom cards that I draw each morning as sort of a daily fortune cookie. Then I think how my friend Melanie gave me the deck and how generous and playful she is and how lucky I am to know her as a friend. But I wouldn't know her if I hadn't taught creative writing with her in a summer program in the 1990s. I wouldn't have had that job if my friend Alden hadn't recommended me for it. And I wouldn't know Alden if I hadn't gone to graduate school with her. And I would never have gone to graduate school without the encouragement of my undergraduate writing professor. And I wouldn't have taken her class if not for ... You get the picture. It's almost a game, tracing the present day gratitude back through all the causes and conditions that gave rise to it. Thinking through this circuit of prerequisites amplifies the gratitude, scales it, brings me into contact with the multiple independent factors necessary to bring these cards into my life. I wonder if that old man Samaritan looked back on that day in his life and then started threading and saying, but I would have never been able to touch these people had that not happened. And then these people went on to do this. And I imagine him sitting on his front porch, just full of gratitude. I understand that. In my Friday email, I shared about the year that our family has had with a lot of highs. But we've also had some losses and challenges. We got the news right before celebrating Easter morning here at St. Luke's that her dad had passed away. And then in that week in which we celebrated his life, or the week after, our daughter Sarah delivered our third grandchild, Robbie George, at just 26 weeks, and it led into a whole summer of being in the NICU and concern for his well-being. But I look back now and I see it's all praise. I think about the gift of Riley Children's Hospital. I've known about that hospital. I know how it came to be. I know about the Methodist women who sacrificed to build Methodist Hospital, and later how the focus of a hospital for children came about. But now I appreciate these people I don't know deep in history because it's blessed my life as a granddad. I think about our church. I've been on the giving end of prayers for people in time of concern. I've taken your hands and prayed with you and sought to connect you with other people who could be of support. But now that happened to me. Experts in medicine were coming to me saying, Rob, let me tell you some things. You need to know this data too. You need to be encouraged by that. So many of you said, we want to pray for you. We're keeping Robbie in our prayers. Every week you would say, how's Robbie doing? How's Robbie doing? I am grateful all over again for the gift of a community of faith. What is your Thanksgiving? Take some time to turn around.